Hey everybody, Corey here coming at you with another knife video. This is a kind of interim video because it's December, man. It's Christmas. I'm busy. I'm sorry. I have a life. But I wanted to show you the pipeline, and I actually wanted to give you a quick and dirty review on what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 knives that I have in my possession that are going to be coming up in the review. So without further ado, hope this satisfies you. I do have a review in the works. It is of the Bestek Ghost. Great little knife, and we will be talking about that here. But again, here, let's just start. This is in no particular order. This is not how they will be coming. It's just these are the ones that I have. Excuse me. So, for starters, we have the Quiet Carry IQ. Obviously, this is the blacked out version with the carbon fiber overlay. This is a very cool little knife. Overall, I'm satisfied with it, but I think for this one, you really need to embrace what it is. It's a very small knife. It's definitely a gentleman's carry. It's definitely not made for heavy use. And for this one, a few things in particular were kind of interesting. One, and I can't for the life of me figure out why this is. This has pretty bad lock rock unless I tighten down the pivot all the way. At first I thought it was something with the lock bar, but then basically I just kind of, for lack of a better word, cranked down the pivot, and for whatever reason the lock rock went away. The other thing that I'll say, for a knife this small and for blade stock this thin, I went to sharpen this because I noticed it wasn't cutting very well. This, by my measurements, which are generally relatively accurate, had 30 degrees per side on the bevel. Now, for those of you who aren't aware with, cutting and whatnot, the lower the angle per side, generally, the better that the knife is going to slice, right? And then there are a bunch of other things that go into that, including blade geometry and grind and blah, blah, blah. But, just for reference, like bushcraft knives are usually like 26 degrees per side. Kitchen knives can be anywhere from like 10 to 20 degrees per side and 10 to 17. And EDC knives are generally somewhere between 15 to 22 degrees per side. This thing, honestly, God bless it, love it to death. I still love the knife. 30 degrees per side was crazy. This thing was struggling to cut paper. And given that it's not, it's basically an office knife. If anything, you think they'd make it like really good at cutting paper. Don't know if that was just mine or if that's this one, but that was the case with the Quiet Carry IQ. Still very much love this knife. Just a few things that kind of made me scratch my head a little bit. Next up, this is the review that is in progress. This is the Bestek Ghost, and it looks a lot better directly under the camera, but we've got that shredded carbon fiber handle, and of course this one is all blacked out because that's kind of what I do sometimes. This knife, oh God, a knife this small, okay? We're talking about bug out size. We're talking about bug out range for the weight. And just let's that action on a knife this small with a blade this thin is absolutely ludicrous. The fact that it basically drops shut is insane. It's got a relatively aggressive grind, which makes it a good slicer. And the shape of this knife, this is one of the most comfortable knives I have ever held. Obviously, this doesn't fill the exact same role as the bug out. It's a little bit flashier, it's built a little bit differently, and technically it's not as light. But with what you're getting here, a great action. You don't have to worry about omega strings. You've got a full forward finger choil. The ergos are great, and I think this is way more attractive than any of the versions of the bug out that they have out there. This is a really good knife, and it just reaffirms like how awesome Bestek is. So that's the Bestek Ghost. Next up, ProTech Malibu. This one's all blacked out and has an abalone handle. That is because it is a Blade Show 2021 limited edition. I don't actually have a lot to say about this. The review is long overdue. I got this months ago. It was on a whim. It was limited edition. I just picked it up really quickly because I thought I wanted it. And when it comes to the Malibu, I will say it's nice. It's a nice knife. This might be, in my opinion, more overrated than the PM2. Again, it's not a bad knife, but this is definitely one of those knives where when I got it, I was like, yeah, it's nice, but it's fine. It's good. It's not bad. It's just not really as mind-blowing as some people on the internet might seem to say it is. So that's all I'll say about the ProTech Malibu. Again, not a bad knife, just maybe a little hyped up. Next up, this is the Bestek Swordfish. I believe this is a Knife Center exclusive, but there's a very specific reason that this one is actually relevant in my opinion. This comes in S35VN, okay? So this is the second time you've heard the name Bestek on this list. My God, the way Bestek does their knives is just absolutely ludicrous. Why don't I have more Bestek knives? Well, not all their designs speak to me. In this case, this knife will cost you about 85 bucks. For S35VN, a blade that's like, I think it's 4 or 4.1 inches, in Bestek fit and finish, Bestek quality, big knife, S35VN, made by Bestek, under $100. It's ludicrous. The review isn't out on this thing yet, but my God, it's just like all the other Besteks that I've ever handled. This is, phew, that's a nice one. Next up, Viper Katla. This one has an interesting story. So what originally drew me to the Viper Katla was that it was less than $200, and you get this milled titanium handle, this part and this part, right? That's milled titanium, and you also get M390. Not sure if you can see that right there on the blade. M390 in milled titanium for less than 200 bucks. That's pretty cool. That's pretty unique. And I was drawn to this knife because I think, well, it's aesthetically pleasing. There are some decent reviews out there on it. Overall, I do still like this knife. It has one fatal flaw in my opinion, and unfortunately I found this out after I started buying it, or after I already bought it. Some people have noted that it has lock rock, and boy, does it have lock rock. Now, that being said, I've tried spine whacking it. I've tried putting a lot of pressure on it. I can't get the lock to give. But it's just the kind of thing, in my opinion, any blade play and any lock rock in a knife over $100, unacceptable, off the table. I could never recommend it to someone. That being said, great knife, great materials. If you're okay with a little bit of lock rock, would definitely recommend. You will not be able to find this configuration because this is also the first one that I ever sent into Way of Knife for a custom job. But that's not what this video is about. But if you're wondering why you can't find a blue and brass one anywhere, that's why. Next up, oh boy, the Giant Mouse Knives Ace Sonoma. Now, some people have had one problem in particular with this knife, and I have experienced it, but I think it's really just, oh God, the action on this one. I think it's just a matter of a learning curve. So people complain about the action, specifically that the lock bar is extremely sensitive to pressure. When you flip this thing, you have to kind of grab the pocket clip or nestle your finger against the side of the pocket clip. It is true, if you put any pressure, and I don't want to come off as like exaggerating, but I'm serious. I've tried putting just a tiny bit. Basically, my finger just, there it is. I can't do it. I can't flip it. My finger is just barely on that lock bar. Can't do it. You've got to be completely off that lock bar to use to open this knife. Is it a fatal flaw? I don't know, because see, here's the thing. I absolutely love this knife. I absolutely love the ergos. This Giant Mouse, the Ace Sonoma, is manufactured by Rayot, which we all know how I feel about Rayot. Rayot is absolutely amazing, and as a matter of fact, I need to pull a Rayot out that I forgot for this list. The action is the only thing I can complain about on this knife. Some people complain about the pocket clip. I don't think it's a hot spot. It is a little too shallow carry for me. There's a healthy little hunk of knife hanging out of the pocket, but they do sell a deep carry clip for this knife straight from Giant Mouse for like 15 bucks, I think. Action is absurdly smooth. It never comes loose on me. Flipping it is extremely satisfying. Once you've got the hang of it down and you know where to put your finger and not be on that lock bar, this is really good. This one really surprised me, and I really wish it didn't have the issue with the lock bar that it has, because this knife, in my opinion, could essentially be perfect. This is a really good knife. That's what I have to say about the Giant Mouse Knives Ace Sonoma. The next two that I have on my table are they're a little pricey. Let me go get the other Rayot real quick. Okay, wow, almost had a crisis there. If I would have lost this thing, oh, I would have been so sad, because this might be my favorite knife in my collection. Next up, the Rayot Knives New Torrent. This is the bronzy, brassy version, whatever you want to call it, and oh boy. These were going for like $350 or $375 when they first came out. They're really hard to get a hold of. Uh-oh. Oh my god, the action. The action on this thing. You're getting premium materials. You're getting an inlay inside of an inlay. Look at that. Carbon fiber and then anodized titanium. Oh, by the way, textured anodized titanium. You get a slight stonewash finish on the handle. You get matching anodized titanium hardware. You get a ceramic ball on your pocket clip. You get milling on the pocket clip. You get anodized dimpling on the back spacer. You get this sexy harpoon blade and RWL 34. And oh, by the way, the action on this thing. Oh, boy. No blade play, dead center. This is the knife that made me say, you know what? It's Rayot. It's Rayot all the way. And we've got two knives coming up after this. I'm gonna help you understand why I say it's Rayot all the way, okay? That's all I'm gonna say. Rayot New Torrent, amazing knife. Absolutely amazing knife. Next up, this is my most recent acquisition. This is the Vero Synapse XL in black micarta and a hand-rubbed satin blade. What do I have to say about the Synapse XL? Well, that looked pretty nice, if I'm being honest. I have spent a lot of time with this knife, and I don't want to get too far into the details because it's been a bumpy ride with this knife. I think the only reason that that's actually dropping shut right now, yep, so the pivot's backing out on me, which is something that it does. This is manufactured by Bestek. These knives have gotten just nothing but praise from the knife community. I do understand it. I think mine might be a little bit of a one-off. I have quite a few small issues that kind of add up in mine. The centering isn't quite on. The action doesn't quite drop shut, which is a subjective thing, but it's clear that the action was made to drop shut. And I kind of have a little bit of blade play even if I crank down the pivot. Other than that, it's a really well thought out design. I have a few complaints with the knife, but overall I think this is one of those knives that, you know, it's got a lot of hype. I think everyone would be satisfied with it on average once they got a hold of it, but yeah. Just a little disappointment. This is one of those ones with a ton of hype. So I think it was kind of doomed from the start for me because there was just so much hype behind it that I think it's one of those knives that it just can't live up to the hype that it's garnered at this point. Last but not least, oh boy, my custom Olamic Wayfarer 24/7. This one has a whole bunch of story behind it that we're not going to go into in terms of my correspondences with Olamic. Long story short, great knife, great design. Again, mine, interesting. Maybe there are some problems. What I have determined through extremely scientific measuring, which is kind of a half joke, my blade is not evenly ground. I had a few correspondences with the Olamic team going back and forth about the fact that my blade wasn't centered and that there was blade play and blah, blah, blah. I will say this. Their idea of blade play clearly is not the same as mine. They shipped me a knife twice that they said there's no blade play, everything is functioning perfectly, and as soon as I took it out of the box both times, there was blade play. When I tighten down the pivot to make sure that there's no blade play, the centering is off. The centering is off primarily because the blade grind is off. They said the tolerances were correct within the pivot. However, I would say the tolerances, while they might be correct within the pivot, because the blade is ground asymmetrically, it just looks like it's off center, when in reality, the tip of the blade is off center, but the tolerances in the pivot are correct. Kind of an interesting discussion to have about a knife that costs you $700 if you build it from the ground up. But overall, this is another one that falls into the category of wow. It's definitely a well thought out knife, and it's a knife with some of the best ergos that I've ever handled in a knife. And of course, it's always nice to be able to uniquely design your knives from the ground up, of course. But you know, just some interesting experiences with the team for a $700 knife, and we'll get more into the details of that in the formal review video for this knife. But those are all the knives that I have up on the table right now. Spoiler alert, I have a Rayot K3 on the way that I got a screaming deal on. And I also have a custom PM2 coming from Way of Knife for a re-review to see if I like the PM2 any better with the changes that I kind of suggested that it should have from the get-go. So hope you guys enjoyed this. Hope this is a nice little gap filler between review videos, and I will see you guys next time.